Welcome to the Queer Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Venegoni. Here we have conversations with artists, healers, and activists who enliven the LGBTQ communities and who empower our queer spirits to flourish. On today's show, I talk with Lis Goldschmidt. Lis is an acupuncturist and herbalist who has been practicing in San Francisco for 10 years. She treats people with a variety of conditions and has advanced training in the treatment of Lyme disease, hormone balancing, pre- and postnatal care, as well as mental and spiritual issues. Lis approaches Chinese medicine with the sensibility of an artist and activist. Today, Lis tells us about the magic of receiving her first acupuncture treatment and how it helped her to decide to become a practitioner herself instead of a car mechanic. She gives us a rundown on how acupuncture works and how it can be used to treat ailments of the mind, body, and spirit. She also shares with us a secret about her practice that makes working with her so unique. Find Lis at 5pinsproject.com. Hi, Lis. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. So, Lis, I thought I would start by sharing a story myself about how I met you, because I feel like you came into my life in a very powerful moment. I actually was just about to take my licensing exam to be a psychotherapist, and I wanted to get help with focus and stress. And I went to an acupuncture clinic, and that's where I met you because you treated me. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. And I had received acupuncture before, but I think it's really important just to share with listeners all the different ways that acupuncture can be used and the power of it. So I just wanted to say thank you.
My pleasure. Yes, I remember that very clearly. That was a very sweet connection. Yeah.
So can you share with us the story of how you first got interested and became an acupuncturist?
Yeah, I had a friend who, she just suggested it. She actually gave me a gift of a few acupuncture treatments. I think I was maybe 23 or 24. So I saw an acupuncturist in Pacific Heights a handful of times and thought it was incredibly interesting and strange. And what were they doing? And it seemed like magic, it just seemed like this science magic moment every time I went. And I was a little baby dyke with purple hair and blue fingernails and wild style. And the acupuncturist thought this was all very meaningful, which made it even more interesting and exciting to me. She was a 5-element acupuncturist, and they put a lot of stock into people's attraction or repulsion to color. And so she was very excited and interested in my choices of hair color at the time. So yeah, after that exposure, I just sought out some of treatments on my own from different acupuncturists, whether it be kind of one-offs on Clement Street or in Chinatown. And I had amazing benefits for my own health and particularly for hormone balancing. And it led me to just do some of my own reading about acupuncture. And I was interested in how acupuncture grew out of Taoism as a person who's always been interested in spiritual traditions. And when I had my Saturn return many years later and was reflecting on what I wanted to do with my life, and I thought about the things that had interested me, acupuncture was kind of in that mix, and Chinese medicine was in that mix, along with herbalism and honestly, so many things. Becoming a car mechanic was in the running, and there were a lot of things. So yeah, through, a lot of therapy and soul searching, I finally chose to go to acupuncture school.
Were you interested in cars also?
I'm very interested in fixing things, and I'm very kind of interested in working with my hands. And yeah. And at the time I rode an old motorcycle. And so it was like, I was fixing that a lot. It just seemed like it would be fun. It seemed like, the world needs more women in those kinds of professions.
Yeah. And now you're a car mechanic for the body.
Yeah, of sorts, right? Yeah. Less toxic environment for my own body, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So for those people listening who don't really know about acupuncture or think it's this weird thing where we just stick needles in our body, I wonder if you can just share with people a little bit more about what exactly it is and how it works.
I mean, it is just this weird thing where we stick needles in the body. And it's this many thousands of year old tradition that is based on the idea that there's a vital energy, qi, that runs through the body. It's basically life force. A being that is dead does not have qi. So chi is what keeps us alive. And chi runs through our bodies through meridians. You can think of it kind of like veins or like the nervous system, but in a slightly different place. And then the chi pools in powerful points, acupuncture points, and we can access those points with needles. And we use those points to balance the chi. So perhaps there is a stagnation of chi causing pain, or a deficiency of chi causing fatigue, something along those lines. And we can kind of manipulate the chi, if you will, to help the person feel more at ease.
And then in Chinese medicine, there's also the use of herbs. Can you share how that interplays or interacts with acupuncture?
Yeah, I mean, they're both Chinese medicine. And in fact, so is Tai Chi and Qigong and all kinds of lifestyle things, ways of eating and ways of sleeping. And so herbalism is part of that. The school that I went to in San Francisco has a big herbal program. And to become an acupuncturist in California, you have to study herbs. In other states, some acupuncturists do not have to study herbs. And some acupuncturists do not use herbs at all. On the other end of the spectrum, there are acupuncturists who only use herbs. You know, they're herbalists, they're Chinese herbalists, and they don't use acupuncture. I use a little bit of herbal medicine in my practice, but I mostly do needles.
So you say that you approach Chinese medicine with the sensibility of being an artist and an activist. Can you share more about how those interplay together?
So one of the beauties of being an acupuncturist is that there are many ways to be an acupuncturist. So there are some acupuncturists who lean beautifully into all of the science that Western medicine gives us. They do blood tests and hormone tests and saliva tests and stool tests, and that information helps them develop treatment principles. There are acupuncturists who do quite a lot of manual therapy and are working kind of in traditions with chiropractors and osteopaths. I am neither of those. And actually, there are a lot of other types of acupuncturists. I'm an acupuncturist who works more with what I would say is like the subtle body. And as we know, right, as people who believe strongly in the connection between the subtle body and the physical body, or the seamless relationship between the two, by working with people in their emotional, spiritual realm, it also affects their physical realm. So in that way, I feel like I'm approaching acupuncture and using acupuncture in kind of like a creative way, like I'm thinking of it like an artist. And I say like as an activist, because that's what I am a person who has a certain kind of view of the world, right? This is as a queer person, as a kind of outsider person, as a person with a, poverty background, as a person who lives in a community of other outsiders, who is anti-capitalist, who is body positive, who's fat positive, who's sex positive, who's sex worker positive, who's poly positive, all these things, right? These things that like make our community so beautiful. I bring all of that to my practice and to my approach and how I work with people. I feel like now I'm rambling, but I just have things to say. So I'll just say them to you. Perhaps you can edit this. But I was thinking and anticipating talking to you like, wow, I'm going to be on Nick's cool podcast about queers and queer healers. And like, what makes my practice particularly queer? Because of the changed demographic in San Francisco, I don't really treat that many queers anymore. To be honest, my practice is not, I can go days without treating anyone who is at least out as a queer to me or themselves. So it's not the mainstay of my practice anymore. In the beginning, certainly. In the beginning, I treated a lot of, in particular, trans people, because there was a plastic surgeon in San Francisco who many trans masculine people came to for top surgery. And it was known, or word spread, that I was trans savvy or trans friendly. And so a lot of people would come to me for pre and post surgical treatments. Since that plastic surgeon is retired, and thankfully so many more acupuncturists are trans savvy and trans friendly, it's just not the focus of my practice anymore. So I don't have that, but I sometimes see trans people, but it's not like a major focus of my practice. But I was thinking about what makes my practice in particular, like queer in particular, and I think just my approach to healing, because I'm a queer, because I'm a slightly older queer and came into queer community pre-gay assimilation culture. So, I came in to queer community at a time where we were very much outsiders, very much treating each other very much like businesses would have signs like, this is a gay-owned business, this is a woman-owned business. And we would go to those places on purpose to support each other, So out of that, has grown my whole adult idea of like what it is to be in community and to be in a healing community with others, and my value system around harm reduction. And so I think, though many of my patients aren't queer, I bring that to their healing sessions, just my own value system. And I think that can be very healing for them, just to talk to a person who maybe they don't talk to anybody who is anti-capitalist or who is that positive, or, so I think it can sometimes give them permission to think about things in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's this way that the gift that queer people bring to the world is the ability to think outside the box, because the straight world has spent so much time trying to put us in a box, but the straight world also puts themselves in a box, right? And so I think that queer people can help non-queer people to expand outside the box that they may feel confined in themselves. So I think that's part of what you're addressing here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so great. It's so freeing, right? To just be like, you don't have to do that. No. Like, what if you try something else?
Yeah. Or like in my case, really allowing people, cisgendered men and women, to break outside their own gender norms and feel like just because that's how they identify doesn't mean they have to do X, Y, and Z because it's what their great grandparents did. So you just said that you don't really see that many queer people in your practice anymore, and that historically you were working with a lot of transmasculine people around top surgery. So that's one thing that you've done. But I'm wondering, either historically and presently, what are other common issues that you have seen queer people for in your practice?
I do quite a lot of fertility support, and I've done fertility support for queer couples. And, queers get repetitive stress injuries, like all of us. So that, the usual stuff that everybody comes for, back pain, digestive issues. Sometimes side effects from taking exogenous hormones, people will have. Sometimes for some people, taking testosterone can lead to tendinitis or insomnia, treating things like that. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just thinking about what you had talked about earlier about the chi and the energy in the body, and curious if you've seen any way that chi issues or the way that chi moves through queer people is different than non-queer people or anything like that.
Ooh. After the most recent presidential election, of course, so many of my patients came in for emotional issues, right? Insomnia, anxiety, all of the physical things that can lead to, like digestive issues and migraines. And in particular, queers and people of color and people not born in this country coming in for like even more intense reactions, right, to the results of the election and to their families. Perhaps, their family of origin voted for the current president, or, just those kinds of rifts that I think not limited to queer people, but certainly a lot of queer people can have struggle with their family of origin because of their queerness. So that was kind of like a big moment in my practice that felt like a particularly queer moment.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've seen, and I've noticed other psychotherapists and people in the mental health field have seen a lot of stress and trauma re-triggering as a result of the current socio-political climate that's happening in the world. So I think that for people who are new to acupuncture or haven't experienced acupuncture, they might be able to go, oh, okay, I can see how I could go see an acupuncturist, which is this thing where they do something to my body, can affect my body, like pain or fertility or migraines or something like that. But I think that some people might still be confused, like, well, how is that going to help me on a mental level or an emotional level? Can you speak a little bit more about how Chinese medicine and acupuncture addresses that?
Yeah, one way that it does it just kind of in the most basic way is if you went to an acupuncturist for, like, let's say you sprained your ankle and the person treated you for ankle pain, you would leave the treatment feeling relaxed because acupuncture just relaxes the nervous system. So if the treatment is focused on something like anxiety or panic attacks or insomnia, and that is the focus, it can be very effective for those types of things, stress management. I have really found that working with patients who are feeling, disconnected emotionally or having a hard time getting present in their bodies. Or I'm trying to think, actually, I just spoke with a young woman yesterday. It was like, she was describing it as just like not feeling right. She just felt off. People will say like, I feel out of balance. And it's Chinese medicine, like the entire focus of the medicine is to be in balance, right? We balance yin and yang. We balance internal and external. That's the whole point of it, is balance. So that's what the treatments are always focused on. So the acupuncture can help allow with that. I also, when working with people, try to just talk about lifestyle stuff, like really basic kind of like diet and lifestyle. Again, I have a really like a harm reduction approach. Some people are very strict. Some practitioners are very strict with their patients about what they think they should eat or what they think they should be doing for exercise or whatever it may be. My approach really is that the person I'm working with is the expert. It's their body. They've been in the body for however many years. I'm just meeting this body for the first time. So they really know what makes their body feel good and what makes their body not feel good. So I really trust their wisdom. And I bring my clinical experience of 10 years, and I bring the wisdom of Chinese medicine that I've studied and the other kind of research that I've just done personally on nutrition. So, with that kind of mixture, we find a thing that's best for them, right? So for some people, that means setting up a routine, like a daily routine is what helps them feel like grounded and connected. Maybe they need to have like breakfast every day, like their meals every day at the same time, or they need a bedtime. For someone else, maybe what they need to do is have wild adventures and go dancing late at night. It's like every person needs something different, obviously. But I feel like part of my role in helping people be deeply connected to themselves and their bodies, because their body is themselves. It's like I don't see a disconnect between the body, mind, and spirit. So I feel like it's just as important to try to get my patients to like eat vegetables as to like find a way to be in touch spiritually. And I feel like my consistent kind of challenge with people currently is I find so much value in community. I mean, community is to me the backbone of everything. It's like something I value most highly. And we're just living in a time, especially in the Bay Area, people work unbelievably long hours behind screens. They don't have a lot of like actual time to be with other humans in real time together, to share meals together, to go for walks together, to just like lay on the living room floor and listen to records together. I mean, people just, there's no lounging about. It's like working 70 hours a week and then trying to go to, I don't know what they're doing, but they're not just hanging out with each other. So I feel like I'm constantly just like, there are labor laws and people aren't supposed to work this much. And maybe I sound like some weird old socialist, but like maybe you don't want to waste the best years of your life behind a computer, and just trying to remind people that capitalism doesn't have to win.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I have clients who work for some of the big tech companies here in the city as well. And, there are some people who they literally walk into the building at 8:00 in the morning and then they leave at 7:00 at night. And they literally have not left the building or had any fresh air or exposure to sunlight in almost 12 hours. And I'm trying to just tell some of them, like, you're allowed to leave the building. It's okay for you to go outside, even if it just means going outside and getting coffee. Or I tell people, like, even if you don't smoke, take a cigarette break.
I do that too. I tell them, I'm like, just pretend you smoke.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Exactly. And then don't smoke, because that's actually better for you.
Right. Go walk around the building.
Exactly. Or go with your friend who does smoke and they can smoke and you can get fresh air. Right.
Totally. Yeah. I know, it's kind of heartbreaking, right? It's just to see people suffering. And I mean, I see it as like people are really just suffering under capitalism. They feel like they have no choice. They live in a city that is so expensive. They feel like they have to work all these long hours in order to afford to live here. And then they pay the price, right? It's like the company continues to make all this money off of them. Meanwhile, their arms, wrists, necks, shoulders hurt and are going numb. And their low backs are in pain because they're at some weird desk, and their digestion is off because they're always sitting and they're eating rushed in front of their computer, and they feel lonely and anxious and depressed. And They can't sleep at night because they're staring at screens all day and they're looking at their email right before they go to bed and right when they wake up in the morning. And their menstrual cycles are off because their stress hormones are so wacko. I mean, it's just like, for most of them, I'm like, all right, my prescription for you is to quit your job and then all your health issues will be resolved. Or just come see me every week and then, keep your job and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm in this lone voice in the woods, like just yelling out, being like, you need to have dinner with friends sometimes. And you need to maybe have a couple days a week where you're not working at all.
I had this image of you literally being a lone voice in the woods saying, come back to the woods.
Yeah. And I do. I feel that way. I mean, people will say to me all the time, like, well, isn't this just what work is? And I'm like, well, I'm at work right now and I love it. I go to yoga on my lunch break because I schedule it in, and I'm at work in my office 4 days a week, and I try to have a work-life balance. And yeah, that means I don't have like a big 401k, and I don't have like a big giant salary, and I don't have job security, and I don't have, all of these things, but I would 100% not change it, for a financial gain.
And something else that you've sort of touched on a little bit is spirituality. And I'm wondering how you bring that into your practice as well, and how, if at all, acupuncture connects into that.
Okay, well, I'm about to come out of a closet to you now, Nick, here on the air. I hope nobody's listening to this episode. When I was in practice several years ago, I shared an office space with a psychic. And some wisdom she shared with me was to go see like her psychic. So, right, this is like grandma psychic. So I would go see this woman every couple of weeks, this like grandma psychic, for some idea of like energy clearing or something. I don't know. I just went because my friend told me to do it, who I shared the office with, and she seemed like she knew what was up. So I saw this woman a couple of times, this grandma psychic, and she said, it's all great. You're an acupuncturist. Great. But really what you're supposed to be doing is energy work on people. If the way you can do that is by doing acupuncture, great. Chi is energy, fine. But she was like, what you should be doing is just laying your hands on people and then, see what happens. So over the course of a couple years, I would do what she said. I'd give people acupuncture treatments, and then I would hold on to their feet and I would see, what do I see? What happened? And that was it. That was all I did. And then I would go to her once a week and be like, well, this is what I saw. And this, what do you think? What does this mean? And kind of have like counseling with her about what was all of this. All that to say, so I give people acupuncture treatments. I'm an acupuncturist. And then at the end of most of the treatments, I hold onto their feet and I see what I can see. And then I share with the person what I've seen. And I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, some kind of mini psychic reading or something. It can be very powerful. And I think as I talk about it, I realize I'm like really minimalizing it. It can be very powerful for people. And it's, to be frank, the reason I think a lot of people come to see me, like they tolerate the needles to get to the end part. Like they'll be like, when are you going to hold my feet again? Because my approach to it also, as my approaches to everything in life, is like, I'm very into the most like sacred, beautiful, spiritual thing. And also the most like basic daily life sense of humor. Let's keep it real and accessible to all people. I'm not trying to I don't think I'm doing anything that anybody couldn't do. If you were able to hold on to the feet of 40 people a week, you'd probably see something too. You know what I mean? It's just like a practice for everyone to try if they get to do that. That's how spirituality comes into it, because basically what I'm doing, right, is I hold on to their feet and I'm asking anyone who wants to share anything with me, is there anything else that can help this person on their healing path? Is there anything else I can do for them? Is there information that I can give them? Is there something that they need? Does their body just need to hold on to their feet? Does their body need to have a trip to the ocean? Does their body need more protein? Does their body need to be reminded that they stand in a lineage of powerful women? Does their, you know what I mean? These kinds of things. So that's kind of the most obvious spiritual piece of my practice. But then of course, Chinese medicine grows out of Taoism, which is an ancient spiritual practice. So there's that.
Well, thank you for coming out of the closet about that. Yeah. I won't tell anyone, I promise.
Okay, thank you.
So Liz, can you share with us a person, practice, or experience that has supported your queer spirit to flourish?
I would say 100% community. I mean, I grew up in an intentional community in the middle of the woods in Virginia.
So you literally are from the middle of the woods.
I literally am in the middle of the woods. And that childhood really allowed my spirit to flourish in a lot of ways. And then as a young queer in San Francisco, like all the beautiful community that I've been able to be a part of, it's amazing. And as an acupuncturist, the acupuncturist community, fellow healer community, the neighborhood that my practice is in, that community is like so beautiful and keeps my practice alive. Just even building my office was completely built and created and established by volunteers and community helping to make it happen. Like literally magical angel kind of moments, like meeting a stranger who then spent almost a month helping me build my practice out, only to disappear the moment that it was finished. So community.
And you cultivate community because you have art shows in your space too.
I do. I feel like, I love that San Francisco used to be such a place for artists to live and thrive. And so I try to keep that alive as much as I can.
Well, Liz, thank you for being here and sharing about your practice. Where can people find more about you and your work?
I have a really awesome Instagram account called 5 Pins Project. And then I have a website called 5pinsproject.com. It's the number 5 spelled out, FIVE, and then Pins Project.
Well, thank you for being here and helping me build community.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Great chatting with you.
Do you feel lost or stuck? Or are you alone on your healing journey? If you're seeking guidance or support, I'm here to help. I offer online coaching and counseling for queer spiritual folks from all over. Schedule your free consultation with me now by going to queerhealingjourneys.com. I look forward to supporting you on your path. To find the resources we discussed today, find the show notes at thequeerspirit.com. And if you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. This will help us reach and support more queer people all over. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.